Hey, Randy Joe here, and welcome back to the channel, where if you've been following along, once a month I return back to Kate Bush's discography, and we dive and listen to each album of hers in chronological order for the first time. Now, of course, we've been doing this now for a while, and we are now hitting her pretty massive album, in fact, her lengthiest project to date, at an hour and 20 minutes. That, of course, being her 2005 record, Ariel. Now, I don't know too much about Ariel. I do know that there is the original version and, of course, the 2018 version remaster, which we are listening to today. And the reason why I'm choosing the remaster is simply because, from what I read, it seems like she chose to re-record some of the elements of these tracks because of a, let's just say, convicted felon on the original mix, on the original mastering of the album. There was an artist featured on there who did some not so legal stuff, and we're gonna leave it at that. And I, of course, do not want to feature a disgraced artist such as that on my channel, especially if Kate Bush herself felt the need to completely remove him from the work itself. I believe at the end of the day, Kate Bush is the artist. I'm going to follow in her footsteps here and honor the 2018 master. On top of that, another thing I find interesting about this LP is that in the original release, disc 2 here is typically released as one entire, I believe, 42-minute track. So when we get to that part there, we will try to take it in and listen to it as if it was one whole, because I would imagine that seems to be the objective there. But here they are broken down into individual tracks. Still, let's just kick it off. This is a lengthy project. I don't want to talk too much. I don't want to dilly-dally too much. I just want to jump right into it. And of course, the opening track here is King of the Mountain, 6.5 million streams. Not sure what to expect. But now we are in the 2000s with this record. I like the very atmospheric approach to this one, instrumentally. Maybe about the meaningless of materialism. The struggle to fill that void. Oh. This is about the Elvis, Mr. Elvis Presley, the King of the Mountain. I guess would make sense. Is this perhaps a critique of capitalism, though? Why does a multimillionaire fill up his home with priceless junk? Maybe a critique on materialism. Also, instrumentally, I love how sparse this is. I love the very kind of laid back, almost ambient focus of it. It's got a gradual, very sensual build. Maybe here, definitely feels like a tribute to Mr. Presley. A little hint at the conspiracies. I like this guitar work too in the background there. Nice rough, off-kilter sound. Oh. I love those gradual moments of build up, this climax. just want to say the 2010 CD reissue combines all parts of A Sky of Honey, disc 2 here, into one track lasting 42 minutes. Earlier I said that we'll treat it as one whole track, but it seems like if the original release was separated tracks, then maybe we should treat it as such. I guess we'll see how it kind of plays out. I'm just kind of curious, you know, do you guys personally listen to Sky of Honey as one whole, or do you guys kind of listen to some tracks individually? I guess that's kind of my main takeaway here. I don't know what the consensus is, but carrying on, I just think that's interesting. I do think, speaking of, this track itself is interesting. Musing over whether or not Elvis is really still alive, perhaps. I love those prolonged. Oh, getting angelic here. Love those buried vocals there too. That's a beautiful opener. A tribute, it would seem, to the King himself, Mr. Elvis Presley. The King of Mountain is an art rock song. Big fan of art rock, by the way. Which describes Kate's wondering if the late Elvis Presley is still alive someplace. Interesting track. I love when she does these kind of, bizarre topics. I feel like this one is, again, it's a little weird. It's not necessarily something that's super relatable or I guess accessible. It's a unique topic. And sometimes with her, that either sticks the landing, and sometimes it could be maybe too overtly bizarre. But here, I like it, and I think instrumentally and performance-wise is what really pulls it all together. Great instrumental, very rich, very textured sound to it. Let's go into Pie. Love me some pie. Like this kind of thudding sound. Oh. Vocally, I want to say, since The Kick Inside, her debut, honestly, her vocals just continue to improve. They sound brilliant on this LP so far. Very strong. A nice restraint to them, I feel like on a lot of her previous records, she belts it out a lot more. This man's a bit obsessed with numbers, perhaps. Oh. God, this drumming too is very just skittery. Feels very 2000s kind of rock focused. But I like the blend of Kate with it. I don't know why. For some reason it reminded me of like Portishead. Just like a very textured sound. Oh my god, she's really... She's really just singing the number for Pie. Seems this character's a bit of a nerd. No shame in that, though. Big number guy. But Pie, I want to say this track so far instrumentally, like, I'm just loving this direction of Kate. It feels a lot more adventurous and kind of out of her zone from what we're used to. My issue with the red shoes was that, and this doesn't go for all the tracks on there, but a lot of that album to me, as great as it was, did feel like an extension of what Kate has already been doing at that point, with a couple of tracks, of course, a little bit more out of the norm. But here's Pie, where I feel like this sound, this rock sound, is very unique, much more forward thinking, and feels more, I would say, adventurous in a sense. Not as old or as dated, obviously, given the year it came out, but I like this kind of like acoustics too in the mix. A nice warmth against like the coldness of the rest of the instrumental. I like that. Is that like a piano or a synth? Whatever it is. I just love it's kind of like beeping urgency. It's been there throughout the entire track. Very hypnotic sound. Oh, those shimmery kind of chimes. Very sweet, very delicate track. Again, I'm loving the amount of subtlety coming with this album, while at the same time feeling very refreshing, very unique. I love just a great sense of texture we're getting on the atmosphere. This feels like a very different side of Kate, like nothing like she's done before. I feel like it is so much more unique in a sense, maybe not unique to the whole music scene, but certainly unique to Kate, and I'm really liking this more specific trajectory on this LP here. Let's go into Bertie. Bertie? Am I pronouncing it too hard? Bertie. Pie was just about a man who loves his numbers. What instrument is this? I like this very like rustic, almost medieval sound. The Renaissance guitar. Well, that would make sense on the medieval aspect. Oh. These strings. Three wishes for this lovely Bertie. Oh my goodness, what is this? We are thrown into medieval times here. I love the atmosphere of this one. It's so whimsical and uplifting. Oh, that's just sweet. It's such a sweet passage. A very Very fairy tale-esque, especially like right down to the medieval roots. I feel like we are in the midst of a fairy tale here in this sweet romance. Ooh. Really great atmosphere on this one. Oh, this drum even. I think this might be... Oh. I was gonna say, I think this might be my favorite track so far. But it's hard to say. I've loved all three tracks. Very unique. Ooh. This is a very just beautiful sentiment. Just so in love, it would seem. That is a really great outro. It's simple but effective. You bring me so much joy, and then you bring me more joy. Kind of like Shakespearean in a way, almost Romeo and Juliet. Just a sweet, beautiful love song with Renaissance guitar work, Renaissance strings, Renaissance percussion. We were fully in the midst of the medieval times there. I loved that track. A big fantasy nerd like myself, of course, I'm going to like that. But even still, you know, I just love the rich texture of it like we've gotten so far. Every track here, it's so unique. I feel like the 12-year hiatus that she had between this and The Red Shoes really reinvigorated her creativity strongly. Let's go into track 4, Mr. Bartolozzi. Bartolozzi? Bartolozzi. Every track, too, despite being so unique and original in its sound, I feel like the album has been pretty uniform in a sense. Perhaps a perspective of a maid. Miss Bartolozzi. Did I say Mr. before? I don't know. If I did, leave this in. A classic Kate Bush kind of piano ballad. Her and her piano, when it's stripped back like that, very beautiful. Just pure bliss. She's got a great harmony with that piano. Deeper piano here. Oh, we're getting sparse. Effective use of space. Very kind of tense and edge of your seat. Listen. Somehow making, really making the act of washing clothing kind of sexual here. My blouse wrapped itself around your trousers. Feels explicit. Oh. Oh, maybe we're getting quite sexual here. What waves are we talking about, Miss Bush? Maybe this is like a fantasy, a yearning for this lover. This upcoming line here just kind of making me chuckle. How is she going to sing Slooshy in such a way that it feels effective? I wonder. Oh, holding onto that space. Washing machine. We've spoken on this channel many times. Recently did a reaction to Talk Talk's Laughing Stock. Same things I said in that video I'm going to say here. I love a good use of space, an absence of sound. Sometimes is more powerful than an overwhelming sense of sound itself. Sometimes, you know, not saying anything is just as effective as saying a lot, essentially. Silence speaks volumes, one might say, you know? Works quite literally in music. I like the piano on this track too. It's very delicate. This is a humorous track. Really seems like it is about the act of washing clothing, with sexual innuendos throughout. Okay, there it is. Miss Bartolozzi is the name of that one. Could have been called Washing Machine. Seems like it is. If you take it at face value, she's washing some clothes, but I don't think that is the main idea there. There seems to be some sexual innuendos throughout. Miss Bartolozzi is the fourth track from Ariel, Kate Bush's triumphant 2005 double album. Very interesting here. Kate says, described in interviews, she said how her newfound domestic life has led her to do a lot of washing herself, sort of like the titular character here, and what she most likely wouldn't have, and that she most likely would not have written this song had that not happened. Though she never addresses the dark undertone of the song directly, there are interviews where Kate indicates towards the themes of death and the searching for peace afterwards. Very interesting. Very, very, it's like she's vague. I feel like Kate does write a lot of her music. It would seem with almost like a stream of consciousness, almost like not intentionally explicit, because even she doesn't know specifically what she's singing about in the context at times. It seems like it's almost subliminal, something in her deeper conscious being written. And that track there, if you take it at face value, it's about washing clothes, but I feel like if you look at it even deeper, maybe those ties of death that were hinted at, I guess she said in interviews, that's interesting. But I did get a lot of sexual innuendos. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe my mind is in the wrong place at this moment. How to Be Invisible is the next one. I did love that track too. Very sparse, and right into a track that's not sparse, it would seem already. This one's a bit more of a hold on, I was gonna say a bit more of a traditional sound, but spoke too soon here. A little bit of a shift. Kind of alien effects in the background there. I love the very driving drum work. I like the catchiness of this one. Certainly feels like the most maybe mainstream or poppy. Certainly without its weirdness, though. Not without its weirdness, I should say. Very funny. I was gonna make a joke about how to Be Invisible sounds similar to Radiohead's How to Disappear Completely, but then upon reading this, the only detail Kate has given in regards to the song's themes is slight annoyance at being told of its similarity to Radiohead's How to Disappear Completely. I guess it's a good thing I didn't make that comment. That being said, I mean, I can't help but feel like when you hear this title, you got to see the similarities. That being said, thematically, lyrically, not too similar. So, it's only by name. Not too sure what this track's about, though. Maybe kind of wanting to vanish. I like this guitar on the right side that's coming in. Assuming that's Dan McIntosh. Unless it's Del Palmer with a bass, I don't know. No, I don't think so. It's gotta be Dan. Solid track, very just nice driving sound to it. Not too much to say about that one though. It's probably my least favorite so far of the bulk that we've heard. Here's Joanni. Already has a darker, kind of ominous tone, really seeping through the mix. Like, feels like something to a video game soundtrack, like Halo or something. It's got like a gnarly guitar there in the back. Oh, where is this instrumental going? Getting funky, but like also very alien, very sci-fi. Clearly a reference to some ancient battle. Cannons, swords, horses charging. This ain't no modern war. Who is this Joanni? Oh, hold on. Joanni. Is this... No, it could be... Is this Joan of Arc? Is this a tribute to the Joan of Arc? Maybe it is. Well, we'll check after the track is done. That's what I imagine. only thing that would make sense to me is Joan of Arc. Oh. Sounds so like very futuristic sounding, despite clearly being a tribute to the past. Ooh. We're ascending here with this sound. I'm not sure what this instrumental is. That's beautiful. Oh my god, Kate. She's getting in the throat there. Easily the weirdest track so far on the album. Very bizarre soundscape we're getting. It's futuristic. It's a little tribal. Kind of reminds me of Bowie in the 90s. But much better executed. I believe that's French. Oh yeah, definitely French. Okay, now that the track's done, I gotta say, weird, great instrumental, very sci-fi. It feels so ahead of its time in a lot of ways, but also feels a little in the past, very 90s-esque, with its kind of almost hyper-futuristic kind of tone to it. Now I'm wondering, is that a tribute to the one and only Joan of Arc? I could be wrong. Joanni is the only song from A Sea of Honey side of the album Kate Bush hasn't discussed in any interview. Kate, with this album, is quite stingy with the details. Despite this, the song's subject is quite obviously Joan of Arc. I thought that was pretty obvious as we went on. So, kind of interesting. Nice to see that legacy still brought through. That being said, A Sea of Honey, which is the side one of the LP, it seems like, there seems to be a theme of every track being about a character or a specific figure, maybe historical, maybe fictional, maybe personal to Bush herself. Interesting. I kind of like that aspect. I'm sure on repeated listenings that will get even more rich. Let's go into the final track of side one here. A Choral Room. We're approaching a Sky of Honey, which seems like an album in itself. I will say, sorry to pause once again. I will say though, 7 tracks in, if this was one album in itself, this would easily be one of her best, because I really love the entire 6-track run we've heard so far. Has been very unique, very forward-thinking, very adventurous for Kate, which is saying a lot. She's an adventurous musician, but I feel like this album has been so outlandish and unique.
Draped in navies in rhythm as the spider of time.
I wish she's singing in this track, like dragging out each syllable. This one's very delicate and stripped back with that piano.
Hundreds of people living here, sails at the windows
Could be wrong. Quick interpretation here. Like a sunken city? The lost city of Atlantis? I don't know. Speaking on ruins. Ruins at the bottom of the ocean. I'm thinking Atlantis. Or just a lost civilization in general. Oh, I like that little melody. Very light, playful sound. Ooh. I love that vocal delivery. Not sure who that was. Track 7. Michael Wood seems to be the performer there. Kind of like operatic. Feels like we're in like a monastery or something with his singing. This one's so beautifully, just like gentle and beautifully sung, kind of like a slight reverb on her voice. Wow. Probably I feel like this album has some of the most beautiful work she has done and arrangements she's done since Hounds of Love, perhaps. Coral Room especially. Very beautiful, luscious production. Just a very, like, a great atmosphere. Honestly, it's kind of breathtaking how beautiful the piano work was on that one too. What's it about? Shot in the dark, I should say. Stab in the dark. Shot in the dark here. Like a lost city, a sunken city. If I'm taking things too literal, I'm curious. Which, I mean, Sea of Honey, maybe it ties into that title of the first side. Despite the main theme of the song being the passage of time, the song eventually comes to address a saddening topic, the death of Kate's mother, Hannah Bush. Well, that is much more depressing than what I initially thought. Main theme, passage of time, kind of sub-theme, tribute to her mother. I didn't pick up on that. You know, you can't pick up on everything on a first listen necessarily right away, but I gotta say, it's still a very gorgeous track, and it felt very airy. It felt very touching. I did think her voice was clearly very emotive, very saddening, a strong sense of sorrow, which I think really kind of yearns for her mother, and yearns maybe for lost time, which would make sense given the themes. A great track. And if this was just one LP, if it was just disc 1 itself, I would say this is easily one of Kate's strongest bodies of work. But it's not just one side, it's actually 2 discs, like I've been saying. Now we're entering A Sky of Honey, which I know some people have spoken quite highly of. Without further ado, let's get into it. Sky of Honey, kicking it off, Prelude. We'll try to treat it as one, because I think that's how it's meant to be treated. So we won't pause it too much in between tracks. We'll just try to talk of it as it goes. We got our birds coming in. Some nature sounds. I wonder how whole these tracks are all going to feel together.
Mommy? Daddy?
Oh. Hold on. What? Those birds kind of turned into vocals in itself. And the line here is literally my reaction. Sounds like they're saying words.
Sounds like they're saying a word.
All right, very interesting start. Love the way she turned those birds into voices. Let's go to prologue. Eases right into it.
It's gonna be so good.
Another nice, iconic piano ballad of hers.
Oh, so excited. Go on and on.
Oh my goodness. Piano work on this one. Transcendent. It's got me on the edge of my seat. For some reason, reminded me of, Legend of Zelda. Just very whimsical.
Lost its way across the sea.
I love how just like focused this track feels. This whole album has been very touching, very beautiful. Arguably her best work on a first listen. Arguably some of the most, I feel like, commanding of her work. It feels like it's just taken a hold with how delicate it sounds. Very blissful. And I love kind of the use of sound effects throughout this LP. Oh. This drum. Just ever so gently sliding into the mix. And that rattling. There it is again. Back to the birds. Like I said, we're not trying to pause too much between tracks, but I gotta say, prologue.
If I can lighten the brown
Gorgeous.
sand and rub it right into where the sky is reaching down, so it's like the edge of a mirror. But this blue needs to be darker, much darker.
A painting here.
Maybe if I can just blend it a bit. Yeah, that might do it.
This is an architect's dream.
Almost like that.
Oh. It's percussion. A little bit more primitive. I love that. That kind of back and forth panning of this almost primal sounding primitive percussion.
Watching the painter painting.
I think Albert McIntosh is our new painter
That bed there.
on this LP.
It was an accident. He's so pleased.
Like Bob Ross says, happy accidents, right?
He could make.
The beauty in art,
That is my favorite
kind of
piece.
embracing the imperfections.
It's just great.
I love how airy this side of the LP feels. Very meditative.
Down to the hills. In his hands.
Oh.
And sweeping, rising and reaching.
Picking up now with a sense of urgency.
What he was feeling. Watching the
How are the streams so low on this one? I love
always the same.
this one's very just like tranquil, you know, like the very gentle primitive percussion up against these long drawn out synths feels very ethereal, almost ambient, honestly, kind of flirting with ambience.
Whenever he works on a pavement, watching the paint to paint.
And this seems like her
It
kind of
starts to rain.
tribute to art itself.
And all the time the light is changing.
Almost like embracing the constant state of change and imperfections in art. Is that what I'm gathering? Oh, that bass. Very thick bass guitar. Let's keep it going. Right into the painter's link. Another short one at a minute and a half.
What has become of my painting? All the colors are
This is Albert McIntosh in place of the name we shall not say. I've not heard the original, so I have no point of reference, but I'll say seems like it does a solid job. Kind of theatrical in his performance, though. Carrying on some themes of the last track. Let's go into Sunset itself. Love how much it's all segued from one to the next. Ooh.
In a sea of honey.
There it is. Got some title drops.
Of honey.
Like the cover itself here.
The most beautiful, iridescent.
I like her kind of self-harmonizing there, that overdubbing. Very whimsical.
Of honey. Keep us close to your hearts, so if the skies stay dark, we may live on in comets and stars.
Oh, I love her self-harmonizing quite a bit. And oh, that piano fell a little off kilter there. Oh, some strings coming in. You know, like I can't help. Pause it real quick. This album is so beautiful. There is such a strong sense of just like bliss on a lot of these tracks that feel very uplifting, feel very otherworldly, and kind of feels like this LP is the closest Bush has ever done to doing a sequel or a continuation of one of her albums. Other than, of course, Lionheart to A Kick Inside, but that's more like leftovers rather than a sequel. But Ariel feels like a strong sequel, a strong contender to be a sequel to Hounds of Love. I can't help but feel like the beauty of this LP, Hounds of Love, feels very similar, but in a more modern context, and just as beautiful, though, on Ariel here. You know, it feels like she takes some of the aspects of Hounds of Love and is just kind of modernizing it into a much more modern rock, art rock kind of focus. I'm loving it, though. It's very textured, it's very beautiful, and it's very minimal. Hounds of Love, more explosive. This one much more stripped back, but just as gorgeous.
This is a song of color, red and rust, then climb into bed and turn to dust.
Oh my goodness, pick it up. A bit of a Latin influence, it would seem. It's like we're on a beach. This one's got a nice groove to it. Oh my goodness. Even with that gentle piano. That frantic plucking. This is incredible. Absolutely incredible. I don't want to pause it, but this is the best track. Hands down. This is a perfect track. This whole second side has been a journey. I like that deeper voice too. Nice contrast with her. Incredible, beautiful outro. And the birds come back. Carrying on to the next track here, Aerial Towel. Just a short 1 minute piece. She is imitating a bird call. As weird as ever. A strong sense of nature on the second side. I like that piano too. Maybe setting up the next track here. Oh. Sky of Honey they were singing. That's what they're singing. Here we are, somewhere in between. Kicking it off already feels kind of 90s-esque. Like breakbeat. I love the very kind of like techno, kind of electronic feel to this track. Something that she doesn't really explore too much in any of her other albums. But I feel like this album in general has been very explorative of other genres. Also very heavy on the strings, this LP. This one honestly is very, again, like a lot of the other tracks here, very hypnotic, but also I'm loving the very kind of 90s techno electronic elements of this one. It's got a colder sound, but those strings are quite warm in contrast. Also, who's singing on here with her? Gary Brooker. Gary Brooker, great contrasting vocal with her. Great harmony. I like how he's a bit more buried in the mix. I like that bass. Do 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 do. It's a nice bass, nice warmth. And those birds. Keeping a nice kind of connection between the tracks here. Let's go into Nocturne, the second to last track here, 8.5 minutes. Quite the epic.
Into the moonlight.
Okay. Belting it out there. Super ambient, like, oh, that intro was just very gentle. This whole trajectory of Kate is so different. But I'm loving it. Very modern. feels very Portishead, you know? That's the best comparison I've got here. Almost like maybe trip hop. Although I'm not too knowledgeable on trip hop to say for sure, but it feels like there's some trip hop leanings. Especially that percussion. Got a nice sound to it. Nice strong rhythm. From what I read here, the track's about her and her lover going for a swim. Such a gorgeous suite of songs so far. We have a return of the like Renaissance sounds there, it would seem. Maybe it's just the acoustics. I love how much more abstract a lot of these tracks feel in the second half. Much more free-flowing. Which, honestly, great album titles in themselves. I love how ethereal and epic she sounds. Oh, there's like a hunger in her voice. Like a vileness to her self-harmonizing there. Some of her best self-harmonizing, some of her best overdubbing, hands down. Very epic sound. Let's go right into Aerial here, the final track to close it out. Wrapping it all up. Not sure what that instrument is, but sounds great. There's such a distinct atmosphere to this side of the album. And it's instruments like that that are really driving it home. Oh. This percussion's so driven, kind of thumping. So futuristic. Like I said earlier, this LP sonically feels out of this world in another dimension, and that only continues to get stronger. Her voice just like kind of becoming one with the instrumental. There's our birdies again. That laughing meant to be her or the birds. I think Kate has lost her mind here. You can still see so much creativity in her music too. Same creativity that was in the dreaming here, but a much more focused context, perhaps. Oh, there's that thumping drum coming right back in the mix. Maybe like a track about being one with nature. Seems like she's becoming one with the birds. Up on the roof, flying away. A very kind of spiritual, in a nature-esque track. I love how loose this track is too. Really, a lot of this album too just kind of grows, but this one especially kind of feels like we are fully letting loose in this finale of the track. God, there's that laughter again. Kate. Her sanity slipping away. And there's those birds. Seems like she became one with the birds. Achieved a freedom. Well, there's like some strong connection or ties to nature. Just like a long fade out with the birds here to close out the LP. And that does it for Aerial, both the track and the album for Kate Bush, which the track itself, it seems like we fully let loose and kind of just maybe even improvise as we get towards the end, as it feels like it really explores the rich textures and the explosiveness of the sound here. Not much to say about it, just felt very uplifting, very powerful, very surreal in a way, which the whole second disc, A Sky of Honey, has been or was extremely ethereal, beautiful, focused on the concept of art and freedom, perhaps. I think the tracks detailing this painter here kind of speaks to maybe Kate's love of art and the beauty of art, and how she, looks at music and challenges the art form. Whereas after we get from Sunset onwards, it feels like she's fully exploring a sense of freedom. She is kind of free from the constraints maybe that the art world may put on her, maybe the music industry puts on her. It kind of feels like maybe that's the message here, is that she's completely bursting at the seams with creativity to the point where she is unforgiving in her exploration into the art form, which, I feel like with something like The Dreaming there in the background was already given with Kate Bush, but it feels like this album was perhaps some of her most creative work in decades after, I would say Hounds of Love, Sensual World. This is an incredible LP that feels super refreshing for her. Feels like she is kind of stepping outside of of her own box, which is already pretty crazy to do considering she is such a unique artist. But even this direction she takes is not just unique for the music industry, but even unique for Kate herself, with just how out of the norm it sounds for her sound. It's very modern, it's very refreshing, it's very kind of rock oriented, but it also has elements of ambient. It also has elements of Renaissance music. She's pushing the boundaries of length on some of these tracks, some of them reaching 9 minutes almost, while other tracks are just a minute long. It feels like, she is not really trying to stick to one method of creativity here. It's very bold, very beautiful, and has some of her most straightforward, literate work on disc 1, where disc 2 is some of her most abstract work by far. Very, very abstract as we get to disc 2, which I thoroughly loved. It felt like a journey from Prelude all the way to Aerial. It was a 42-minute epic that just continued to evolve and explode into each and every direction. I have to say, a double album, not a minute wasted. Very beautiful, very explosive. Hands down, maybe the most shocking work I've heard from her. And I feel like this is going to end up being one of my favorites of her, if not my favorite, up there with like Hounds of Love. This feels like a sequel of sorts to the beauty of Hounds of Love, but with a much more modern and different sort of lens. So Aerial, 2005 it came out. Great record. Still sounds very fresh. Still sounds very unique, and definitely a must listen in her discography. And a strong comeback, because the Red Shoes, again, even though I did like the Red Shoes on a first listen quite a bit, and the Sensual World I was a little iffy on when I first heard it, I did find those two albums, even though still very great by any other artist standards, were not Kate Bush's strongest. After, of course, The Dreaming and Hounds of Love, it felt like they were a little bit more meandering. But Aerial does feel like the iconic, unique, bold Kate of the Hounds of Love, The Dreaming era. But that does it for today's video. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe to follow along and listening to more Kate Bush. We have just a couple more works from her. We have the director's cut, which we are going to cover. And then, of course, we have her final album, 50 Words for Snow. So if you're interested in hearing more, seeing more reactions of Kate Bush's discography, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're interested in punk music, we are doing November Punk. We're going to kick off that series a little bit later than we planned, but we are going to kick it off and throughout the rest of November listen to different punk albums. So if that sounds interesting to you, subscribe and follow alongside myself in reacting to punk and Kate Bush. But as always, my name is Randy Joe. I appreciate you watching, and I'm signing off.